Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Be Your Own Hero Show. Today is the 10th day of May. This is the second episode of season 4 of the Be Your Own Hero Show. HERO is an acronym. It means helping everyone reaps optimism. In other words, helping others helps you. It's a reciprocal action. Try it. You might like it. I'm your host. I'm Sekouwrites. I am a professional creative, which means I do a lot of different creative things, like I'm an author and I'm a playwright, for example. And I'm also the creator of the Hero Ministry Movement, which is my effort to uplift and inspire people in general and the unhoused community in specific. So join me here Monday through Friday, 8:45 a.m. Central Time, 9:45 a.m. Eastern, 7:45 a.m. Mountain, to watch me talk about my journey of becoming my own hero in general, but more specifically, my own financial hero. And if this show moves you in any way, please like, please comment, please share. And shout out to New Thought Media Network for allowing me this space, this opportunity to talk about my journey of becoming my own hero. So all that said, we're in season 4. I can't even believe it. We're in season 4. And as I said yesterday, season 4 is still evolving. We're not sure, well, I'm not sure what season 4 is going to be about. So please give me your comments, your suggestions. I want to be of service to others. So I want this to feed us as a group. So let me know what you're interested in. What are the things we've talked about already we should talk more about, etc. But as I said towards the end of season 3, it has become clear to me that this is a show about financial literacy for artists and retirees. That seems to be the thrust of the show. So that said, let's figure out what the theme is for season 4. All right, quick disclaimer, I'm not a personal trainer nor am I a financial advisor, so take what I say with a grain of salt. In other words, do your own due diligence. Okay, all that said, let's jump into some Hero Ministry Movement news. Shout out to Linda in Colorado. Shout out to Nan. Good to see you guys here. And shout out for everyone else watching now or watching on demand later. Okay, so Run Street. Today is day 344. I've been running every single consecutive day for now 344 days in a row. And oh shoot, I'm going to play my run report. Here, let me just skip to playing the run report, and then I'll circle back to what else I want to say about this. So let me take myself out. And this is from this morning, today's run report. Here we go.
Day 344. I've been running every day, at least a mile a day for 344 consecutive days in a row. What? And today's day 344. I'm over 1,000 miles, over 10 charities raised money for, over $7,000 raised. Welcome to the Sekou Hero Charity Run. Woo! All right, you know what I learned today? I learned that my tolerance for multiple miles is higher. That's a complicated way of saying I've been tired for the past couple of days, and I didn't realize that the reason I was tired was because I wasn't running enough miles. I only ran 2 miles today, but the past few days I've been running a little over 1. And the difference between a little over 1 mile and 2 miles was extreme for my body. I feel much more energized. You can probably tell, right? I feel much more energized. All right, so that's the lesson of the day. Push yourself. Later.
Day 3. Okay, that's it. As you see, I've made the run reports shorter, experimenting with a few things. So that was only 60 seconds. And I cut off the music at the end where you see me running. So anyway, making some changes there. So there's a couple things I want to say about the run report. Number one, how counterintuitive is it that I need to run more miles to have more energy? What? Like, it didn't even hit me that was happening until like 1.6, 1.7 miles in. And I actually at 1.5 because I was listening to my pace. I have this app, the Strava app, tells you your pace. And it told me that my half mile from 1 mile to 1.5, that half mile was much faster than the previous mile. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Well, let's round it off to 2 and see what happens. And yeah, I felt much better. So how counterintuitive is that? And you wouldn't know it unless you get out there and do it. So that's lesson number 1. And there was another lesson from the run report. Oh, shoot. I'm not going to play it again, but there was something else I wanted to talk about. It'll come back to me. Anyway, so as I said, I'm experimenting with the run report, making it shorter and more digestible in small bite-sized bits. Okay, separate but related, the most recent charity component was a fundraiser for Brown Boys Read. That is complete, in case you missed the memo. Right now, we're at $1,065. So in the overflow, over the limit, over the goal, well before the deadline. And it's going to take actually a few days to reconcile. I remember this from the previous fundraiser, the one from Mr. Charles. So the system has to reconcile the amounts that have been donated and all of that. They have to extract their fees. So it's still going to be open for, I don't know, the next week or so. So if anyone wants to make another donation to take us even further over the top, feel free. You can just go to herocharityrun.com. Let's see. I want to put that up on the screen and make it easy for everybody. There you go, herocharityrun.com. And that'll take you right over to the GoFundMe page. Okay, so that said, what? Wait, I saw a comment. Yes, Linda, I'm listening to my body more, and I am becoming more aware of what my body is trying to tell me. You know, like, it occurs to me now that my body and your body, they've been communicating with us all along. But you've got to tune into the communication to understand what's being communicated, right? Like all the different things, all the different ways that the body's trying to communicate, at least speaking for myself, all the different ways that my body was trying to communicate with me before, I just ignored. And I feel like most of us do. But now there's a more direct line of communication. Like I definitely understood in the moment, I'm feeling more energized, let's run further. And then I talked about it, as you saw, immediately after that. And then also, same thing is happening to me in terms of water, in terms of hydration. Like I can tell when my body needs water. And I know for a fact, if I eat something salty at night, I'm going to pay for it in the morning. My body's going to be mad at me. It's going to make my head hurt. And there's a couple other things that's based on having salt at night. So yeah, there's definitely a clearer line of communication between me and my body. And that's been cultivated over this 344 days of running every day and building the connection and listening to my body. Okay, that's sidebar number 1. We're doing okay. We're doing okay in terms of sidebars. All right, moving on. So, dice roll challenge. I know Linda, you said you're still doing it. I know Rev Mel's still doing it. We're gonna keep it rocking. Yesterday was 6. We're gonna do the dice roll and get a dice roll sound effect. Maybe I'll do the drum roll. Anyway, here we go. 1, easy day. Easy day. Number for today is 1. I'm just writing that down so I don't forget, so I can do the number for the whole week on Friday. So yesterday was 6. Today is 1. If you missed yesterday, you're just going to take $7 out of circulation and stack it up for the future to invest, specifically to invest. This is not an emergency fund. This is not a bills fund. I'm speaking to myself on that. This is for investing. All right. So moving on to Morning Zen. And again, if you've got ideas about what you want to talk about on the show, drop them in the chat. Let's keep it rocking. But moving on for now. Morning Zen. So yesterday I talked about the marshmallow test, and then I ended up talking about it again on a work-related Zoom later in the day. And it was fascinating for a lot of people. So I wanted to circle back to that and add a few more details. So number 1, this was in the 1960s. Actually, it was in 1960. It was at Stanford University, and the professor was named Walter Mischel. All right, and there were hundreds of children that were part of this experiment. It wasn't 2 or 3, it was hundreds of children. So that said, I want to read this author's conclusion. This author writes, delaying gratification through self-discipline is critical for success in all facets of life. I'll read that again. Delaying gratification through self-discipline is critical for success in all facets of life. All right. And now this author lists some examples. I'm going to read the examples because maybe they might make it a little more concrete. So here we go. If you delay the gratification of watching Netflix after a long day at your 9 to 5 and instead work on your side business, you'll be able to quit your job sooner. If you delay the gratification of buying junk food at the store, you'll eat healthier when you get home. In turn, you'll feel better about yourself. If you delay the gratification of skipping a workout or sleeping in and going for a run instead, you'll become stronger and more energized. I can testify to that one. If you delay the gratification of going out and partying until you've earned it, you'll avoid the stress of unfinished work. And finally, if you delay the gratification of buying nice things until you have the money, you'll appreciate your purchases more, knowing that you genuinely earned them. So those are some of his examples. That last one reminds me of something that Jay-Z says. Jay-Z says that if he can't afford to buy it 3 times at once, then he doesn't buy it at all. So if he can't afford to buy, let's say, 3 Maybachs at once, Maybach is a car, a very high-end car. If he can't afford to buy 3 at once, then he won't buy it at all. He wants to make sure that he's got more than enough money. That's one of his rules for saving and investment. Well, actually, that's one of his rules for expenditures. Like most folks will get just enough money to get the thing and then get the thing. And his discipline is, no, I got to wait until I've got 3 times the money. And I suspect that he means he's investing the other 2 times. So the amount of money times 3, he takes 2/3 of it and invests it and uses that to pay for the liability. Now, I'm just guessing, but based on what I've learned about wealth and abundance now, I feel like that's probably pretty accurate because you have to use your assets to pay for your liabilities, which is a mind bend for all of us. Okay, that's actually a pretty good segue. So I want to talk about what we started talking about yesterday, long-term versus short-term. Long-term versus short-term. And actually that ties into the marshmallow experiment too, because in terms of, what did he say? In terms of delaying gratification through self-discipline, you have to believe that delaying gratification financially will lead to riches eventually. You've got to believe that delaying gratification, I don't know why I can't talk to that. You've got to believe that delaying gratification now will lead to riches in the future. You got to believe that. You got to believe it through and through. And if you don't believe that, then it becomes much more difficult to move in a way that benefits you financially. I'm speaking from experience. I'm also speaking to some of the stories that some of you have told me. So in terms of yesterday's chat about long-term versus short-term, we're already skipping a step. The step we're skipping is mindset. Mindset cannot be underestimated. It cannot be underestimated. So I just used the example I gave about Jay-Z. I'm sure it took Jay-Z some time to develop the habit of waiting until he could afford to buy something 3 times before he bought it, right? But that has benefited him significantly. So if you don't have the mindset, though, you're just going to spend the money. You're not going to use your self-discipline to delay gratification for the good that's down the road, especially if you don't believe in the good that's down the road, or you don't know enough about the good that's down the road. So I use myself for an example. At some point, several times in my life, I've been given stock, right? But what did I know about stock? Nothing, nothing. So what I did very clearly, I remember this very clearly, is I looked at the dollar amount and I was like, oh, that's a lot of money. And I cashed out immediately. So in the language we know now, I closed my position. I don't even, wasn't even aware of that languaging then. But I closed my position, took the money, ran, and then, the money was gone shortly thereafter. One time I remember I spent it on studio time. I was trying to become a recording artist. Those recordings are still around somewhere. I got to find those. Anyway, so I do have something tangible to show for the money. But if I had simply left the money in the stock market, I'd be in a lot better position financially. But so you got to know that the stock market is a long-term game usually. It's a really 5 to 10 year game. And I know I said 3 to 5 yesterday, but I'm just trying to level expectations. So it is a long-term play, right? Or one of the ways to play it, I'll phrase it that way. One of the ways to play it is long-term. Buy and hold long-term. You don't worry about the daily fluctuations, the weekly fluctuations, the monthly fluctuations. You only care about years, and you only start paying attention to years after several years. And you can do this experiment yourself. I do it all the time. I actually did it this morning. So you go into your brokerage account. They automatically show you the scariest thing. And I'm sure that's no accident. Somebody had to program it, remember. So they automatically show you the daily chart. Well, the daily chart is scary because you go in there and it's all red and it's down and the arrow was straight down, right? But as soon as you start toggling that to other time spans, so if you move it from the daily chart to the weekly chart, it usually gets a little better. You move from the weekly to the monthly, it usually gets even better still. If you move it to the yearly chart, it gets really good. And if you move it to 5 years or more, it gets great. Usually, if you're talking about a blue chip stock, a known company, it usually gets great. So you should do that as a practice, as a habit. It's always going to default you to the scary chart of today, but you can choose to look at the full scope of the life of the stock, and that will be much less scary for you. It'll be much more encouraging, and it will remind you that this is a long-term play. You got to believe, and just play the game long-term. Because as I mentioned yesterday, if you take your money out, you got to start over from zero. And that's about mindset. Because if you have the right mindset, you won't take your money out. You're going to leave it in there. So here's another story. So someone I know has $1 worth of Coca-Cola, just $1. And they started getting dividends on $1. That's crazy to me. So my reaction to that is, oh, wow. They got dividends on $1? So if it was me, I'd be like, I got dividends on $1? Well, what happens if I put $2 in? And then 5, and then 10, and then eventually I'd buy a whole share of Coke. And Coca-Cola is only like $50 per share, so it's not even an expensive stock, right? But I would want to know how much money Coca-Cola is going to pay me if I have a whole share. Now, her reaction was different. She wanted to get rid of the stock. And so again, it's really about mindset. We can't skip the step of mindset. When we talk about long-term versus short-term and how to invest, you can't skip the step of mindset. I've tried before. I've been like, oh, let me just get to the money. No, you got to be able to think about it the right way. It's the same things. The same things will happen, the same stimulus cues, but you've got to read those differently. So if someone gave me stock today, I'm definitely not going to sell it. Or if I do close the position, I'm going to reallocate the money right back into the stock market into a position that I'm more familiar with. Like I might close that position and put the money into the S&P 500, for example. But I'm not taking the money out of the market because I understand now that the longer you leave it in, the better off you are. So that brings us full circle to what I want to talk about in terms of long-term versus short-term. Okay, so I've been thinking about this a lot too, because as newbies to investing, it's so vast. I'm sure some of you have experienced this too. It's like, it's so vast. It's so big. It's hard to know what to do. right? So in terms of my plan, in terms of what I'm doing for me, I've been trying to find a decent balance of long-term versus short-term. Because once I finally realized that this is a long-term play, like, oh, this is a years-long play. This is a 5 to 10-year play. Oh, okay. Well, how can this benefit me now? So the first answer is net worth. That's the first answer. I gave an example yesterday about a guy whose car broke down when it was daddy day, when he had the girls, and he ended up buying a new car. And he was able to do that because he listed his brokerage accounts as assets at the car dealership. Well, that's one of the stories I think about as I'm saving for the future. Like, even though this is not money that you take out and pay a bill with, this is money that counts as part of your net worth, your overall net worth. So that when anybody pulls up your numbers and they have your accounts, they're like, oh, wow, let's give this person whatever they want, other people's money. So they'll give you loans, cars, boats, whatever it is you want. You'll be able to get those things more easily because you've got this net worth, this stack of net worth in your account. So my point there is that there is a use for it. There's a use value there for it, even though you're not taking it out and spending it. So that's one way I'm thinking about it. The other thing that I'm doing, and I invite any of you to do this with me, I'm also playing with the medium term. So yesterday I mentioned I think it's ideal to have a short, medium, long-term goal in the stock market. So long-term is what I was just talking about, but just to make it clear, long-term for me is mainly buying and holding index funds, primarily. Index funds like the S&P 500, like the Dow Jones Industrial Average, like the NASDAQ, like big, juicy index funds with lots of companies in them. Those shares tend to be around $300, $500 per share. So not inexpensive shares, but they've got so much in them, especially the S&P 500, which I've talked about ad infinitum here. But it's 500 companies, and each of the companies has a net worth of at least $1 billion, has a market cap, of at least $1 billion. I'm sorry, at least $10 billion. $10 billion per company for 500 companies. Like, it's hard to go wrong with that. But again, those shares are relatively expensive. So anyway, my long-term play is buy those chunks, those index fund chunks, and stack them. And yes, don't ever sell them. Just save them forever. And that becomes a net worth play for me. And it becomes, what's that phrase? Generational wealth for generations after me. I will pass it down and I will make it, I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure out how to legally make it impossible to sell it, right? I don't know if there's a way to do that, but that's what needs to be done. Because if you don't know, you're gonna see that dollar amount, you're gonna cash it in like I did and go run to the studio. You don't want to do that. So there might be a way to pass it on and make it in such a way that it can't be sold. Anyway, my point is that's my long-term play. Stack index funds forever. Don't sell them. Use them for me as net worth, as like, yeah, here, run my numbers. Here you go, sir, run my numbers and see what I can afford, right? Oh, that's my alarm already? Okay, so let me get to the medium term. That's my long term. My medium term is playing with dividends. So as I mentioned, we talked a lot about Linda's stock, AT&T, and how it pays dividends, even though the capital gains of the stock does not appreciate. Like, it stays at about $20 per share. AT&T stock stays at about $20 per share, but it pays $1 per share per year in dividends. So that's very easy math. If you've got 20 shares, then you're getting $20 per year. And again, my experiment will be to get 21 shares, because at 21 shares, it's going to give you $21 per year, but the stock price is only 20. So it's going to buy another share of stock every year. So that's one of the experiments I want to play with. But it's like My point is the middle term for me is experimenting with dividends, because the dividends get paid no matter what happens with the stock fluctuations. So that was magic to me, finding that out, that even when the stock dips, they're still going to pay you the dividend. Wow. Okay, so there can be a dividend portfolio, and I have one now with TD Ameritrade. I have a dividend portfolio where I have AT&T and some other stocks that are specifically about dividends. So that's my medium term, because when I doubt the long term, I can look at the medium term and see that it's making money. Like every quarter, there's a dividend disbursement. Sometimes there's a monthly dividend disbursement, and I can see that it's moving slow, but it's moving. It's growing on its own. It's literally making money while I sleep. And then the short term for me is going to be trading. Now, as I've said, I'm just sticking my toes in the water, and it's still a little scary for me. But like I've said about Sam's Club and other things like tornadoes, the more you know about them, the less dangerous they become. So I've been experimenting with trading stocks, and I see that that is the fastest way. Well, trading any financial instrument is the fastest way to accumulate wealth. But you can't do that until you build up the mental equivalence of wealth, until you shift your mindset into wealth and abundance. Like it's so volatile that if you don't have a mindset of wealth and abundance, that you can't be in the trading space. So you've got to build that up in the other two spaces, the long term and the medium term. Which brings me back to what I wanted to what I said that I was going to tell you what I'm doing. So what I'm doing, and this is new. I wish I had discovered this, early on, but this is what I'm doing. What I am doing is I am acquiring each of the components of the Dow Jones Industrial Average, Dow Jones Industrial Average Index. I'm not sure how they phrase that. It seems like it's two different things, but there are stocks that compile. There are components of the Dow. And I always thought, even recently, if the S&P 500 has 500 stocks in it, the Dow must have thousands. No, it's only got 30 stocks. Like, that is still mind-boggling to me. That thing that they talk about on the news every day, the Dow was up, the Dow was down. There's only 30 stocks. I've already got 5. I've been moving fairly quick on this. I've got 5 single shares of the stocks in the Dow because they're really inexpensive. They start at $40 per share. $40 per share. Matter of fact, Coca-Cola is one of them. So that's $50 per share. So my goal is to buy each of the individual components of the Dow. And especially for new investors, I'm recommending that because $40 is an acceptable price point for anybody getting in. You're like, all right, $40. Right? And then you keep doing that. There are several stocks in there that are available at about $40. And then there's Coca-Cola at $50. And then they inch up. But they inch up. They don't jump up. It's like 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. Right? So you can work your way through the Dow components, and in the process, build up your confidence, and in the process, build up your mindset about abundance. By the time you get all 30, you ought to be in a completely different headspace in terms of money, in terms of wealth, in terms of abundance. Like, you get all 30 of those stocks, I doubt there's any way you'll cash them in for any reason. If somebody comes to you and say, you owe me some money, you're going to be like, well, we got to work something out because I ain't got it, because I'm not cashing that out. I'm not cashing that out. So let's work out something else. So mindset is critical. And I think buying each of the individual shares of the Dow is a great way to build mindset. It's a great way to build a long-term portfolio. And each of the stocks that I've purchased so far pay a dividend. So it's also a great way to create income. Now, I've got the drip on for all of them. That's the dividend reinvestment plan. So those stocks, those positions can grow faster. But I envision a day at some point in the future, way down the road, when I can turn off the dividend reinvestment and have that money come to me as income. And that'll be my income. All right, so it's now exactly 10:15. 10:15 in New York, in Eastern time. So I'm right on time to hand it over to prayer time. All right, so I see there's some comments, some big paragraph long comments. So let me read those as I close out. Well, let me read those after the show, and I'll respond to them tomorrow. And yeah, all right, so far, day 2, it feels like season Season 4 is much more conversational. That said, stay tuned for prayer time. Stay tuned for Sit with Rev. Melissa, and tune back in tomorrow with your questions, with your thoughts, with your ideas about what Season 4 is going to be about. Till then, keep doing. Be a hero. Be your own financial hero. And remember that now is better than perfect in terms of investing. I'll see you mañana. Later.